Now, whether it's the lit aluminum column at Park Royal or the cedar poles at the Vancouver School Board's head office, or even a mural on the side of the Bentall Centre, you have likely seen the stunning visual work of our next guest, and he hopes that you're going to see even more of it in the years to come. James Harry is an artist from the Squamish Nation, and James, we're so happy that you're able to join us today.
Oh, well, thank you for the invitation.
Okay, so I'd love to get a little bit of an insight into your approach to Salish art today.
Yeah, well, I guess it really all kind of stems from like growing up and mentoring under my dad, Acton Rick Harry. I've been carving since I was 5 years old, and he's brought me around the world. Like, we've been involved in numerous public art projects, both in North America and the UK, and so I've really had the privilege growing up being able to see his career kind of expand. And so, I went to Emily Carr kind of after high school and started to kind of try and learn to take my own kind of direction on my work. So I received more a formal training from that institution, but like more of a mentorship from my dad's side.
Well, no kidding. You inherited that as well and got to work with him as well on many projects. So tell me about the poles at the Vancouver School Board there in that park. They're beautiful. What was that like working with him, carving those beautiful, beautiful images?
Yeah, well, that was a project that I really wanted to, I felt would have been a legacy project for my father and I to work on. Mm-hmm. Just mainly because he's been involved in the school system like his whole life, and he's really done an amazing job at transforming people's perspectives around Salish art. Salish art specifically, because we haven't really had as much work into the public eye. So I thought that this would be an amazing opportunity to work and collaborate with my dad in this sort of mentorship role, where we created a piece for the Vancouver School Board. It would serve for generations to come, for young people wanting to understand the land of Indigenous people that live here and the relationship that they will have with the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So I felt that, it was just like a really legacy-building project.
Well, you make an interesting point about Salish art not necessarily being at the forefront of Indigenous art in the past 100 years. What was going on there?
Well, yeah, there was a number of reasons why that we didn't see as much Salish artwork historically. A lot of our artwork was actually burned in ceremonial fires, and so there wasn't actually as much historical evidence of Salish art. But also, it was like we considered ourselves like more of a sacred society where we didn't talk outside of certain circles. So you wouldn't actually pick up on a lot of those histories. So, there was that, but also when more Salish artists, like speaking more in recent history, that we didn't have as much art in galleries, mainly because galleries didn't actually want to buy Salish art. And, it was like more kind of in my dad's generation where it started to transform and change, where we started to recognize that. And now I'm sort of the next generation taking on that role.
Okay, so in taking on that role then, again, your formation from Acton, from your father, going to Emily Carr yourself and finding your own voice, your own way of representing the Salish culture in public art. What do you look for? What speaks to you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I've always been curious about like how our art forms came to be. And I've asked elders where they thought that the forms came from, but nobody ever could really give me like a solid answer. So I always just felt like this sort of this sense to explore these sort of abstract forms that are rooted in Salish art that sort of mimic the landscape itself. Like when I was studying water or like how fire moves, I noticed a lot of like similar shapes that would have been seen in Salish art. So I started to kind of like delve more into that. And so that's sort of what my art kind of represents now, is that it's like these forms that are embodied and come out of the land. And because like Indigenous people, we were observers of nature, we were part of nature, we never thought of ourselves as separate from nature. We were just interconnected. And so I really look at these pieces as being part of that. Like these pieces are coming out of the land, and that's just me being sort of the vessel for that sort of conversation happening.
There's no doubt that your images are powerful. they really have an impact when you see them. But can you tell us a little bit about the T-shirt that you designed for Arts Umbrella?
Yeah, so I designed this T-shirt for Arts Umbrella thinking about like coming through this Indigenous perspective. I've represented all these different types of hands coming from different animals, from like the eagle's talon to the bear's paw to the human's hand. And I really wanted that to be the conversation piece for this shirt because, you know, we come from, like, going back to that idea that we come from the land and we never thought of ourselves as separate from the land or the animals. So it's really trying to keep that conversation going about how we're all interconnected. And that's sort of what this design represents in some of the more spiritual representation of hands and some more of the literal sense. And that's what I wanted to represent in the shirt.
Beautiful. And what would you like to see in the future when it comes to the representation and interpretation of Salish art here?
I would love to see more representation of it around our city, whether it's new developments that are going up. They invest more opportunities into those types of works because we're at a really imperative time right now where that Indigenous people, Salish people can start to voice who they are so we don't feel invisible on our land anymore.
James Harry, what a pleasure to meet you. And we look forward to more great things. Keep being creative and keep it coming.
Thank you.